Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time we're diving deep into the world of plant anatomy.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, one of our listeners actually sent in some excerpts from Chapter 6 of their biology textbook.
Nice.
Yeah, all about the inner workings of flowering plants.
Very cool.
Tissues, organs, and how their structure relates to their function.
Love it.
So get ready to see plants in a whole new light.
I'm excited.
Me too. Right off the bat, the chapter draws a parallel between plants and animals.
Okay.
And how they both have these incredibly diverse forms, right? But there are also these striking similarities in their internal organization.
That's a great point. You know, both plants and animals have evolved these specialized tissues and organs to carry out specific tasks.
Yeah, it's like just as we have a heart to pump blood and lungs to breathe, plants have their own kind of unique structures for transporting water and nutrients, capturing sunlight for energy, even defending themselves against predators.
It's true. It's like their own little internal cities bustling with activity.
I love that.
Okay.
Okay, so the chapter dives into the three main types of plant tissue systems: epidermal, ground, and vascular.
Right.
Now, epidermal, I remember that from like high school biology. Isn't that the skin?
You got it. That's the plant's outer protective layer. Just like our skin, it's made up of these tightly packed cells and often has a waxy coating called the cuticle, which helps prevent water loss.
Oh, so like a cactus in the desert.
Exactly. That thick cuticle is essential for its survival in that harsh, dry environment.
Wow. So it's like their armor against the elements.
It is.
I like that.
Yeah.
The chapter also mentions these tiny openings in the epidermis called stomata.
Yes.
Now, these are like the plant's tiny mouths, right? Taking in carbon dioxide and releasing oxygen.
Exactly. Stomata are crucial for gas exchange. They allow carbon dioxide in for photosynthesis,
Right.
which is where plants convert sunlight into energy and they release oxygen as a byproduct, which is pretty important for us humans.
Yeah, we kind of need that.
Yeah, we need that to breathe. But it's not just about gas exchange. Stomata also play a key role in transpiration.
Transpiration.
Yeah, it's basically the process of water movement through a plant and its evaporation from aerial parts like leaves, stems, and flowers.
So it's kind of like the plant is sweating.
Exactly. It helps to cool itself down and draw water up from the roots.
Okay, wait, so hold on. Do these mouths just stay open all the time? I feel like that wouldn't be very efficient.
You're right.
Especially like in the desert.
Yeah, especially in a harsh environment like that.
Right.
So plants have this really clever way of regulating the opening and closing of stomata, and that's where guard cells come in.
Guard cells?
Yeah, they're these specialized cells that surround each stoma and act like tiny little gatekeepers.
Okay.
And what's fascinating is how they actually do this. Guard cells have thicker inner walls and thinner outer walls.
Okay.
When they swell with water, they bow outward, opening the stoma. When they lose water, they become less bowed, closing the stoma.
So cool.
It's a remarkable example of how structure dictates function in the plant world.
Wow, so it's like this tiny hydraulic system operating at a microscopic level.
It is.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about this outer protective layer.
Yeah.
But what about the inner workings?
Okay.
The chapter mentions this thing called ground tissue. And I got to be honest, the name doesn't sound very exciting.
I know.
What is ground tissue?
Don't be fooled by the name. Ground tissue makes up the bulk of a plant's body and is responsible for a whole range of essential functions: photosynthesis, food storage, and structural support.
Okay.
It's like the foundation of a building. It provides both strength and space for everything else to happen. And it's not just one type of tissue either.
Okay.
Ground tissue actually comprises three main types:
Okay, hit me.
parenchyma, collenchyma, and sclerenchyma.
Whoa. Okay, now you're just using big words to impress me.
No. Each of these tissue types has its own unique structure and role to play.
Okay, I'm listening.
Parenchyma cells, for example, are the most common type. They have thin walls and are responsible for photosynthesis and storage. You can think of them like the plant's workhorses, busy converting sunlight into energy and storing those precious sugars.
It's like the plant's pantry and solar panels all rolled into one.
Pretty much. Then we have collenchyma cells. These are a bit tougher and provide flexible support, particularly in young growing tissues. Imagine them like the scaffolding of a building, providing that necessary framework while still allowing for growth and movement.
So they're like the plant's yoga instructors, keeping things flexible.
You could say that. Finally, we have sclerenchyma cells. These are the tough guys. They provide rigid support to mature tissues. They're like the reinforced concrete of a building, providing that strength and stability. Think of the hard shell of a nut or the gritty texture of a pear. Those are due to sclerenchyma cells.
That's amazing. I never realized there was so much going on inside a simple plant.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. So we've got the protective epidermis, we've got the workhorse ground tissue. What's next?
Well, next we delve into the vascular tissue system.
Ooh.
This is the plant's intricate network for transporting water, minerals, and sugars throughout its body.
So it's like the plant's circulatory system.
Exactly, like our own network of veins and arteries.
That makes sense. Okay, so the chapter mentions two key players in this system.
Yeah.
Xylem and phloem.
Yes.
And I remember struggling to keep those straight in school.
I think a lot of people do.
Yeah. So can you break it down for me? Like, how do I remember what's what?
Okay, so imagine xylem as a system of tiny straws pulling water and minerals up from the roots to the rest of the plant.
All right.
It's a one-way street, always going up.
Got it.
Now, phloem, on the other hand, is more like a network of tubes transporting sugars produced during photosynthesis from the leaves to other parts of the plant where they're needed for growth and energy.
Okay.
Now, this is a two-way street. Sugars can move both up and down the plant as needed.
Okay, so xylem is for water and minerals going up,
Yes.
and phloem is for sugars going both ways.
You got it. And just like our circulatory system has different types of vessels,
Right.
plants have different arrangements of xylem and phloem called vascular bundles.
Okay, to see the chapter mentioned vascular bundles, and then it just threw out all these terms like open, closed, radial, conjoint. I got to be honest, I got a little lost.
No worries, it can get a bit technical.
Yeah.
So essentially, vascular bundles are just collections of xylem and phloem, like a combined pipeline for both water and sugars.
Okay.
And the terms open and closed refer to whether or not these bundles contain a special layer of cells called cambium.
Cambium.
Yeah.
What's so special about cambium?
Cambium is like the plant's growth zone. It's a layer of actively dividing cells that allows for secondary growth.
Secondary growth.
Yeah, that means the plant can increase in girth, get wider over time.
Ah, so that's how trees get those massive trunks.
Exactly. Dicots, which include most trees, typically have open vascular bundles with cambium, allowing them to grow wider and wider. Monocots, on the other hand, like grasses and lilies, usually have closed vascular bundles without cambium,
Right.
which limits their ability to grow in girth.
Gotcha. So that's one of the key differences between those two big plant groups.
Yes.
Dicots and monocots.
Absolutely.
Remember the chapter mentioned they have different structures in their roots too.
They do. The arrangement of vascular tissue in roots is one way to distinguish between dicots and monocots.
Okay. How so?
So dicot roots typically have fewer xylem bundles arranged in a star shape,
Okay.
while monocot roots have many xylem bundles scattered in a ring. It's like looking at two different blueprints for how to build a root system.
That's so cool. I'm starting to see how these seemingly small structural differences can have big implications for how plants grow and function.
It's true. It's all connected.
It is. I am loving this.
Good. I'm glad.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, pun intended, when it comes to plant anatomy.
We have.
But I think it's time to give our listeners a chance to process all this amazing information.
Yeah, good idea.
We'll be back soon to continue our deep dive into the fascinating world of plant anatomy. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to our deep dive into plant anatomy.
Ooh, it's amazing to think that while we were taking a break, all those intricate processes we talked about are still happening, in every plant around us.
Right. It really puts things into perspective.
It does. It
Yeah.
does. So remember, we were just starting to unravel the differences between dicots and monocots.
Yes.
We explored their roots and their stems. But the chapter also highlighted some key differences in their leaves.
Okay.
Now, remember it mentioned something about the vascular bundles being different sizes in monocot leaves.
You're right.
Is that right?
Yeah, you're spot on. Monocots typically have these parallel veins running through their leaves.
Okay.
And this means that the vascular bundles, those pipelines for water and sugars, are relatively similar in size, except for the main veins, of course.
Okay.
It's quite different from the branching net-like venation pattern you see in most dicot leaves,
Right.
where the vascular bundles vary in size depending on the vein they're in.
That makes sense. It's like comparing a grid system to a tree with branches.
Exactly.
I can picture those long parallel veins in a blade of grass, each with its own little vascular bundle working in harmony.
And this structural difference actually reflects their evolutionary history and adaptation to different environments.
Okay.
Monocots, like grasses, often thrive in these open, sunny habitats where they need to grow quickly and efficiently. Their parallel venation and uniform vascular bundles support this rapid growth
Oh, wow.
and provide strength against wind and other environmental stresses.
It's like every detail of their anatomy is optimized for their lifestyle.
It is.
So cool. So what else is unique about monocot leaves?
Well, remember those bulliform cells we discussed earlier?
Yeah.
Those large inflatable cells that help regulate water loss?
Yes.
They're much more prominent in monocot leaves, especially in grasses. Imagine them like tiny water balloons embedded in the leaf. When they're full, they help keep the leaf spread out,
Okay.
maximizing surface area for photosynthesis. But when water is scarce, they deflate, causing the leaf to curl inward, reducing water loss through transpiration.
It's like they have their own built-in sunshade.
Pretty much.
That's amazing. Okay, so are there any other major differences between dicot and monocot leaves?
There is one more key difference. Remember how we talked about dicot leaves having those distinct layers of palisade and spongy mesophyll?
Yeah.
Well, monocots don't have that same differentiation
Oh.
because their leaves are isobilateral, meaning they're pretty much the same on both sides. Their mesophyll isn't organized into those distinct layers. Instead, they have a more uniform arrangement of mesophyll cells throughout,
Okay.
allowing for efficient photosynthesis regardless of which side of the leaf is facing the sun.
It's like they've adapted to capture sunlight from all angles.
Exactly.
I'm starting to see how all these little details are connected and contribute to a plant's survival strategy.
It's all about adaptation.
It is. Okay, so we've covered tissues, organs, dicots, monocots. What else is there to explore in this incredible world of plant anatomy?
Well, we focused mainly on the primary structure of plants, the tissues and organs that develop early on. But many plants, especially dicots, undergo secondary growth, increasing in girth over time.
Right.
Think of those massive tree trunks.
Right.
That's secondary growth in action.
So how does a plant go from like a slender sapling to a towering oak? Like what's happening inside to make that happen?
It all comes down to that special layer of cells we mentioned earlier, the cambium. Remember, cambium is responsible for producing new xylem and phloem cells,
Right.
adding layers to the stem and roots, increasing their diameter. It's like a tiny construction crew constantly building and expanding the plant's infrastructure.
So as the cambium adds new layers, does that mean the older layers get pushed outward?
Exactly. As the cambium produces new xylem cells, the older xylem cells in the center of the stem or root die and become what we call heartwood.
Heartwood.
Yeah, it provides structural support, but no longer transports water. It's like the plant's inner skeleton, giving it incredible strength and stability.
So the heartwood is basically like the plant's backbone holding it up.
You could say that. The outer layers of xylem, called sapwood, are still actively involved in water transport.
Okay.
It's like the plant's circulatory system is constantly being renewed and expanded.
This is mind-blowing. It's like plants are growing in 3D.
They are.
Adding layers upon layers, creating these intricate and beautiful structures.
It's a testament to the power of evolution and the incredible diversity of life on Earth.
It is.
Yeah.
And remember, each layer of growth tells a story.
It does.
It reflects the plant's history and its interactions with the environment.
Absolutely.
So we can look at a tree trunk and see not only its age, but also clues about the climate, the weather, maybe even past events like fires or droughts.
Exactly. It's like reading a history book written in the rings of a tree.
Wow.
Each ring represents a year of growth, and the thickness and patterns within the rings can tell us about the growing conditions during that year. Scientists who study this are called dendrochronologists.
Dendrochronologists.
And they can use tree rings to reconstruct past climates and environmental changes.
That's amazing. It's like plants are keeping a diary of their lives, and we can decode it if we know how to look.
You can.
I think we've covered a lot of ground here, pun intended, when it comes to plant anatomy.
We have.
But before we wrap things up, I wanted to touch on something that really intrigued me in the chapter. It talked about how understanding plant anatomy is not just fascinating, it's actually incredibly useful for us humans.
Absolutely. Knowledge of plant anatomy is essential in various fields, from agriculture and forestry to medicine and biotechnology.
Okay, give me some examples.
Okay, so for example, understanding the vascular system helps us optimize irrigation techniques and develop drought-resistant crops,
Right.
which is becoming increasingly important in a changing climate.
Absolutely. And knowing about plant defenses can lead to the discovery of new medicines and pesticides.
Exactly. Many of our medicines are derived from plants, and understanding their anatomy helps us identify and extract those valuable compounds. For example, knowing which tissues contain the highest concentrations of medicinal substances allows for more targeted and sustainable harvesting practices.
It's like having a roadmap to the plant's pharmacy.
Exactly.
It's incredible to think that something as seemingly simple as a leaf can hold the key to treating diseases and improving human health.
Nature is full of surprises.
It is. It is. But it's not just about medicine, right? The chapter also talked about biomaterials.
That's right. Plant anatomy is crucial for developing sustainable alternatives to traditional materials. By understanding the structure and properties of different plant tissues, we can engineer new and innovative products like plant-based plastics, building materials, even textiles.
So it's like we can use nature as our blueprint for creating a more sustainable future.
Precisely. The study of plant anatomy isn't just an academic pursuit, it's a gateway to a more sustainable and resilient world. And the possibilities are endless as we continue to unravel the secrets of plant structure and function.
Wow, this deep dive has really opened my eyes to the incredible power and potential of plants.
God, I'm glad.
I think we've given our listeners plenty to ponder for now.
I agree.
It's time to give everyone a chance to digest all this incredible information. We'll be back soon to wrap up our deep dive into plant anatomy and explore some of those fascinating applications you just mentioned.
Welcome back to the deep dive, everybody. We've been exploring this amazing world of plant anatomy.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff.
It is from, those microscopic stomata
Right.
to the towering strength of heartwood.
Yeah,
It's amazing to think that all this complexity is happening, right under our noses.
it is.
In every single leaf, stem, and root.
Absolutely. It reminds us that there's so much more to the natural world than meets the eye.
Totally. And as we were just discussing, understanding plant anatomy isn't just fascinating, right? It's also incredibly useful for us humans.
It is.
So before we wrap up this deep dive, I wanted to circle back to some of those applications you mentioned.
Okay.
The chapter highlighted how knowledge of plant anatomy can revolutionize agriculture.
Absolutely. Think about it. By understanding how plants transport water and nutrients,
Right.
we can develop more efficient irrigation systems
Okay.
and create drought-resistant crops, which is becoming increasingly important in a changing climate.
Yeah, no kidding. Like, we can help plants thrive even in challenging conditions.
Exactly.
I like it. The chapter also mentioned using plant anatomy to develop new medicines.
That's right. So many of our medicines are derived from plants, and understanding their anatomy helps us identify and extract those valuable compounds. For example, knowing which tissues contain the highest concentrations of medicinal substances allows for more targeted and sustainable harvesting practices.
So it's like having a roadmap to the plant's pharmacy.
That's awesome. It's incredible to think that something as seemingly simple as a leaf can hold the key to treating diseases and improving human health.
It is. It's amazing what nature can do.
It is. It is. But it's not just about medicine, right? The chapter also talked about biomaterials.
That's right. Plant anatomy is crucial for developing sustainable alternatives to traditional materials. By understanding the structure and properties of different plant tissues,
Right.
we can engineer new and innovative products,
Okay. Like what?
like plant-based plastics, building materials, even textiles.
So it's like we can use nature as our blueprint for creating a more sustainable future.
Precisely. The study of plant anatomy isn't just an academic pursuit. It's a gateway to a more sustainable and resilient world.
I love that.
And the possibilities are endless as we continue to unravel the secrets of plant structure and function.
This deep dive has really opened my eyes to the incredible power and potential of plants.
I'm glad to hear that.
Any final thoughts for our listeners before we sign off?
I would just encourage everyone to, take a closer look at the plants around them.
Yeah.
Appreciate the intricate beauty and remarkable functionality of their anatomy. Remember, every leaf, every stem, every root is a testament to the ingenuity of nature. Keep exploring, keep learning, and who knows what amazing discoveries you might make.
Beautifully said. And that wraps up our deep dive into the fascinating world of plant anatomy. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey.
Thanks for having me.
It was great having you. We'll see you next time for another deep dive into the mysteries of the world around us.